The rain had been falling since morning, tapping against the windows with a steady persistence that mirrored the quiet in my house. I'd taken the day off partly to rest, partly because I couldn't bear the silence of the office anymore. Around noon, a sudden gurgling sound broke the calm. At first I ignored it, but when water began pooling around the base of the kitchen cabinet, panic pushed me into action. The pipe beneath the sink had burst completely out of nowhere. I didn't know the first thing about fixing plumbing, so I called the first local number I found online. A man answered. His voice was deep and calm, with a slight roughness, as if he wasn't used to speaking for long. He said he'd be there. In 15 minutes, he arrived drenched, in a navy blue jumpsuit and worn boots, carrying a heavy toolbox. His dark hair was slicked back with rain, and a faint 5 o'clock shadow lined his jaw. He looked up at me, his eyes serious, unreadably, and said, "You called about a leak?" I stepped aside wordlessly and let him in. He moved with a quiet confidence, kneeling before the cabinet like he belonged there. As he worked, the room filled with the sound of clinking tools and rushing water, yet there was something oddly soothing about his presence. I tried to stay out of his way but couldn't help stealing glances. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing muscular forearms marked with light scars, like stories he hadn't told yet. At one point, he looked up and caught me watching. A flicker of amusement crossed his face, gone before I could read it. Pressure valves cracked, he said. Common in these old buildings? I nodded, pretending to understand. Thanks for coming so quickly. He grunted softly in reply and went back to work. A comfortable silence settled between us. No awkward small talk, no forced politeness. Just two strangers sharing a rainy afternoon and a busted pipe. As he tightened the last bolt, he looked over his shoulder and asked, "Live here alone?" The question was casual, but it lingered longer than it should have. I hesitated before answering. "Yeah," he nodded once, as if that explained everything. He stood, wiping his hands on a cloth from his pocket. The leak was gone, but something else had started flowing in its place, an unspoken current between us, too subtle to define, to present, to ignore. How much do I owe you?" I asked. He looked at me for a long second. "Don't worry about it. It was a quick job." And with that, he picked up his toolbox and walked to the door. He paused briefly, then left without another word. I stood there long after he was gone, staring at the fixed pipe. The leak had stopped, but a new kind of mess had just begun inside me. The following evening, the doorbell rang again. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, I hesitated, heart ticking faster than it should. When I opened the door, it was the plumber. This time, not soaked from rain, but wearing the same navy blue jacket. Zipped halfway up, toolbox nowhere in sight. Thought I'd check if everything's holding up, he said, eyes meeting mine briefly before drifting past me into the house. The pipe, stepping aside. He gave a one-shoulder shrug, just being thorough. He walked straight to the kitchen like he'd done it 100 times. There was no urgency. In his movements, no sense of purpose beyond being there. I stood by the counter, uncertain of his real reason for coming, but I didn't ask. Maybe I didn't want to hear the answer. Instead, I offered coffee. He nodded once. "Yeah, black's fine." We sat at the small table tucked against the window. The rain had returned, light this time, threading down the glass like whispers. He took a sip and glanced around, eyes skimming the edges of my home as if searching for something unspoken. This place feels quiet, he said. I guess it is, I replied, trying not to let the vulnerability in my voice slip too far. Been like that for a while now. He didn't respond immediately, just took another sip, then set the mug down and leaned back, arms folded. Sometimes quiet is good. Sometimes it's just a different kind of noise. There was a heaviness to his words that made me look up. I studied his face, noticing for the first time how tired his eyes seemed, how carefully he measured his silences. Been on your own long? he asked. Asterisk long enough, I said. You asterisk. His gaze shifted to the window. Used to live with someone. Ended a few months back. Thought I'd be fine, but asterisk he didn't finish. He didn't need. Two. I understood too well. Asterisk, I don't know what gave me the courage to say it, but I did. You seem like someone who doesn't let people in easily. Asterisk that made him smile, just barely. Maybe I used to. Then people started letting me down. Asterisk. Silence that followed wasn't awkward. Was heavy with things unsaid, mutual losses, quiet admissions. For the first time in months, I felt seen. Asterisk he reached for his coffee again, then paused. You know, I didn't really come back to check on the pipe. I looked at him, waiting. I just wanted to see you again. Asterisk my breath caught in my throat, not because of the words, but because of how gently he said them. He hadn't meant to speak aloud. Asterisk outside, the rain grew louder. Inside, something softer, unfolded, tentative, vulnerable, real. Asterisk, and, for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel empty. The days that followed blurred into a quiet rhythm, each one marked by his unexpected visits. Sometimes he'd come by under the pretense of double-checking his work, other times just to have coffee. We didn't label what was happening, we simply allowed it to grow. The unspoken became a language of its own, the way his hand brushed mine while reaching for the sugar. The silent understanding in our glances, the comfort of shared stillness. Asterisk, I found myself rearranging my schedule without meaning to, waiting, anticipating. I didn't ask questions, and he didn't offer answers. Whatever space he was escaping from, I didn't want to risk scaring him back into it. Asterisk one evening, he lingered longer than usual. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing in the background, more for noise than attention. He had his arms stretched along the backrest, close enough for his fingers to graze my shoulder if he moved even slightly. I could feel the warmth of him, steady and familiar now. Asterisk his phone vibrated on the coffee table. I glanced down instinctively. Just a name, Danielland, a preview that read, "Miss you already." Tonight was perfect. Asterisk, I didn't move, didn't speak. But the words seared into my mind like a brand. He didn't notice or pretended not to. He picked up the phone, turned it over, and left it face down. Asterisk something shifted after that. His laugh, when it came, felt rehearsed. His eyes didn't linger the way they used to. It caught him zoning out, staring at nothing like he was somewhere else entirely. Still he stayed. The next visit, he kissed me. It happened slowly, as though we were both testing the moment. His hand found my cheek, warm and rough. Our lips met, and for a few seconds the world outside disappeared. It was gentle, full of restraint, but charged with everything we hadn't said. When it ended, he rested his forehead against mine and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Asterisk, but then his phone rang again. Asterisk he pulled away, muttering an apology, and stood up to answer it in the hallway. His voice was low, cautious, and I caught fragments, names, dates, a reassurance. No, I won't be long. Asterisk. When he returned, he didn't meet my eyes. Just said I should go. Grabbed his jacket. I didn't stop him. The door closed with a soft finality. I was left with the echo of a kiss that had felt like truth, and a silence that now sounded like betrayal. Asterisk, the pipe hadn't leaked since the first day he came, but tonight it wasn't the plumbing that felt fragile. It was me. A week passed without a word from him. No visits, no messages, no vague excuses about pipes or checkups. The silence pressed down harder than the rain ever had. I tried to rationalize. It maybe he got busy, maybe he needed space, but the truth sat quietly in the back of my mind. It's whispering something colder. Asterisk, I couldn't bear not knowing. So I searched him online, a name, a company listing, and eventually an address. I told myself it was closure I wanted, but deep down I was hoping I was wrong, that maybe there was an explanation, waiting to save what we had built. Asterisk, the neighborhood was quiet. His house was neat, with trimmed hedges and a pale blue door. I stood there longer than necessary, rehearsing 100 different versions of what I might say. When I finally knocked, my heart thudded in my chest like a warning bell. Asterisk the man. Who answered wasn't him. Asterisk, he was older, kind-eyed, and wearing the kind of comfort you only wear around someone you've loved for a long time. He looked at me with gentle confusion. Can I help you? Asterisk, I fumbled, unsure what I'd even come here for. I was looking for Asterisk before I could finish. He called back into the house. Babe, someone's here for you. Asterisk, I didn't. Wait. Asterisk, I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. I didn't need to see his face. The word babe had said enough. All at once, the moments between us rewrote themselves in my memory. Silences, the phone calls, the way he never stayed the night, it all made sense now. Asterisk, he hadn't been mine. Not really. Asterisk back home. I stood in the kitchen staring at the sink. The same pipe he'd repaired still held steady, but the weight of his absence made everything feel cracked again. I ran my fingers along the cold counter, remembering his hands. There, the way his voice filled this room. But memory, I realized, was no replacement for presence. Asterisk, I deleted his number. I archived the message thread. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. Asterisk, that night, the rain returned. I listened to it fall as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart sore but strangely still. There were no more visits to wait for, no more maybes to cling to, just me, the sound of the storm, and the beginning of something quieter. Asterisk he'd come into my life to fix a leak. In doing so, he'd opened one I hadn't known existed. But now, I understood something I hadn't before. Healing doesn't always begin with someone else walking in. Sometimes it starts when they walk out. Asterisk, and as I drifted into sleep, the silence no longer sounded like betrayal. Asterisk, it sounded like peace.